Shahabuddin, abolition of the 1972 constitution, ban Awami League student wing, a demand that has been met. They want previous elections to be held as null and void and bringing new constitution in force. The fresh protest started after President Shahabuddin told a Bengali language newspaper earlier this week that he has not seen Hasina's resignation letter as she fled to India in August. The statement infuriated the UNREST-led government and student activists. It contradicted Shahabuddin's address to the nation on August 5, when he claimed that he had received her resignation letter. Asif Nazrul, the country's law advisor, recently accused Shahabuddin of spreading falsehoods and questioned if he was fit to remain in office. There seems to be a falling out between the student leaders and BNP. BNP has opposed the removal of the president, arguing that this could plunge the country into a constitutional and national crisis. BNP, which has ruled the country several times, has said that the president's removal could cause a serious constitutional vacuum, which is unwelcome. They also said that it could delay the restoration of democracy in Bangladesh and help fascist forces. The Awami League has also opposed plans to remove the president and has challenged the legality of the interim government. The counter pressure for now has softened the student leaders. Student leader Nahid Islam, who is also the information advisor to Yunus, said on Wednesday that a decision regarding the president can be reached through political consensus rather than strict legal processes. However, the student protesters are now seem to be running a mobocracy in Bangladesh. They are calling the shots and pressurizing other constitutional institutions. They ransacked Supreme Court premises, forced judges to resign, stormed Ministry of Education and demanded to get credit for exams they missed, which the government accepted. They have also forced a lot of teachers and professors and officials of the Ministry of Education to resign. Meanwhile, Bangladeshi writer and activist Taslima Nasreen accused the top officials, including the army chief and the president, of dishonesty, stating that the resignation letter has never been publicly seen. Now the question is, has it become a usurper's government? From Dhaka, I am joined by Salim Samad, senior journalist and a columnist. And from India, I am joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. Thank you so much, madam. Let me first of all straight away go to Mr. Samad. He joins me from Dhaka. Mr. Samad, are students getting out of control now?
Thank you for having me. Number one, I would not go into that issue of the students. The students are students because they had organized this revolt, and this monsoon revolution is definitely has to be credited to the students. And of course, the students have some limitations which you have to understand. But the constitution is something very different. So there is, of course, the understanding that the impeachment of the president has to be done by Article 52. And if you have to do the impeachment against the president for stating something which they didn't like it has to be, again, submitted to the speaker of the parliament. The speaker of the parliament has been dissolved. So you cannot bring an impeachment against the president right now. So the only thing they have left is organizing protest. So their message has already been heard, and their message has already gone to the authorities. But the interim government had not summoned its cabinet meeting, so therefore there is no version from the Dr. Mohammed Yunus interim government regarding the about the president's whatever resignation. You cannot even ask the president to resign, because if you have to resign, then the next president has to be elected by the parliament. But there is no parliament right now.
So there is no parliament. Basically, you're saying there is no parliament. But the sort of pressure that the students are bringing, another development has happened that the BNP has very vocally spoken against it. They have taken a very different position on this matter, the BNP. So why has that happened?
You're very right. I mean, again, going back to, because possibly the BNP was in power, they understand what is the constitution. So if there will be definitely a vacuum if the president is kicked out or has been asked to resign or forced to but you cannot impeach the president for not committing a crime. And you cannot do that until there is a physical and a mental incapacity of the president. That the president can state something which is, and the president do have, according to the constitution, has immunity against whatever he had done or said or has committed. That is only the parliament will have to decide that the president has to be removed through an impeachment. And again, you need 2/3 majority. And obviously, Salahuddin Ahmed, who first stated this when he came out of the Dr. Yunus meeting, had mentioned this very well. And I'm not surprised, but it is very, I would say they are very aptly have mentioned about the constitutional vacuum.
Mr. Samad, before I go to Ambassador Sikri, do you think that this government is moving in the right direction, fulfilling the mandate, which is to organize an election, a peaceful transfer of power, and not dabble in other issues other than elections?
Well, I have said this multiple times in your show, that this is not a caretaker government, and the caretaker government is missing in the last constitutional reform. So, its Article 13 has to be restored, which is now in the process. Article 19, 13 is likely to be restored because there is a petition that has already gone to the Supreme Court only yesterday. So obviously it will take a little more time. Once the caretaker government is restored, then only the interim government will get a legal empowerment, number one. Number two, then the legal caretaker government will have to go about holding an election. But the interim government cannot hold an election. But there is nothing in the constitution. There's nothing called the so-called interim government, and the caretaker government is of course been scrapped by previous government Sheikh Hasina. So in 2021, so there is of course a lot of loopholes which has to be sorted out. And first of all, there is something that has to be happen, that the 10 reforms commission that has been already been announced, they have just started functioning. And they have given a deadline, and the deadline, not all, but only few has been. So there will be a constitutional reforms commission, one is the election commission reform, and there are many other, like the media and of course the law and order, everything has been in the commission. So once the commission has to produce those documents and submit to the interim government, so then only they can go about with the election. Because this election, the previous election commission, or the election commission that was holding the election, were all farce and rigged. And it happened not only with the last 3 elections, but it also happened in previous government regime. So therefore, this has to be some the plugs, the holes has to be plugged by a new new election commission with the new laws.
Ambassador Sikri, how do you see the current protests? And my second question to you is that how do you explain the silence of Muhammad Yunus and the position which his own junior colleague, whom he introduced to the world, Nahid Islam, is taking on serious domestic issues?
Well, I think that the present situation in Bangladesh is certainly unprecedented. I think the first point that we have to appreciate is that, despite what Mr. Salim Samad has said, that President Mohammed Yunus and all members of the interim government have been sworn in to their present positions under the present constitution of Bangladesh. The oaths they have taken for the offices they hold has been taken on the constitution of Bangladesh. So they have sworn themselves to follow the constitution of Bangladesh, and the first responsibility is to abide by the oath they have taken. So I think that when they have taken that oath and they have sworn to it, the actions which follow must be in keeping with that. But none of the actions which have followed since the 8th of August swearing in of the government have been in keeping with the oath they have taken. For example, the removal of you spoke about. It's being done by certain members of a mob coming around, supporting the, surrounding the changes in the professors, in academia, in vice chancellors, in members of the, even school teachers As we know that even among the minority community, many school teachers were removed or forced to resign by being gheraued. So I think all these actions have taken place. And how can you describe decisions of the interim government to set up a constitutional reform commission, to set up an election reform commission? Are these? Are these in keeping with the constitution of Bangladesh? I don't think so. And that's second point. Thirdly, we have seen that round up people and to bring them to the Bonga Bhavan, the president's residence, and to surround it and to force the president to resign. These were also in keeping with the trend that had been started on 8th of August. But we saw this time that there's a division among the people, a division among the students' movement. All the student movement are not united anymore. Even the response, as we can see even from your visuals, is rather thin on. So there is unity, and there seems to be more and more disunity even among the students' movement. But the anti-discrimination student movement is should be to follow the constitution, and under the constitution, as whatever the elections are which are prescribed with the constitution of Bangladesh about what they want.
Ambassador Sikri, there's an old saying in Hindi. It says that har pat katha ka ek chehra hota hai. So in this who is he? Where is he drawing his power from? How is he calling the shots? Why is he speaking on the issue of president? Does he from which wise as to what path can be taken to remove the president? What is your assessment? I mean to say there has to be the context of his rise. Where has he come from? The world only knows that one day Muhammad Yunus says that here is the man.
Yes, absolutely. I think that, the whole context of who is controlling this government, who is forcing the decisions on this government, that's why I referred again and again to the methodology of removing senior office holders and the methodology of replacing them is completely unknown. And you're right that Professor Mohammed Yunus not having said anything is an indication of his helplessness. In fact, the rumor mill in Bangladesh for the last few days has been that, after Mr. Naid Islam's statement, that it is Professor Mohammed Yunus who will become the next president of Bangladesh. That has been the rumor mill in Bangladesh in the last few days. What the basis for it is, I do not know, but this is what the rumor mill is saying. And, the political affiliations, when you talk about student anti-discrimination student movement, is this the Jamaat-e-Islami? Are this their students who are there? Is this the students' wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami? Even people in the office of Professor Mohammed Yunus, their political affiliations with the Hizb ut-Tahrir and other groupings, those are being talked about in Bangladesh, and certainly those questions do emerge. So the constitutionality, the popularity, the support for these decisions, all these are questions which are there. And I think the people of Bangladesh are strongly democratic. They have fought for democracy all their life. But the repeated, assertions being made by Mr. Naid Islam and others that we want the constitution to be changed, we want this to be done and that to be done, one doesn't know who he's representing. Because if he's representing the interim government, then certainly the Mohammed Yunus who should be making those statements. But if he's not representing the interim government, he's speaking on his own entirely, then the question arises, who does he represent? Because none of the other interim government members have said anything. And is there a division in the interim government? Certainly it indicates a division within the interim government for these kind of, statements for constitutional reform, remove the constitution, remove the flag, the 1971 liberation war doesn't mean anything. I think these are issues on which the people of Bangladesh deserve to have the right to vote in the next elections. Until then, it is if the Supreme Court legalizes the interim government, it is the Supreme Court, the former Supreme Court Chief Justice, who has been understood to have advised President Shahabuddin to set up the interim government, and then the constitutional process is following that methodology. So I think this number of questions raised by these protests of the last 2 days, but also the events of since the 8th of August.
It begets a question, madam. I'll take this to Mr. Samad. Mr. Samad, Dr. Mohammed Yunus is an international figure. He's globally known. I mean to say, he has minted his reputation in the work he has done. The tallest person who is known internationally is the most silent today, running this government. What is your assessment? Why? other people who are advisors to him are more vocal, and the man who is known internationally, globally, even before he took this job, is the most silent person right now.
Unfortunately, Dr. Mohammed Yunus is not the spokesperson of the interim government. You have to understand that. He is not supposed to speak on every issue, every hour, every day, because they have the other people to talk about the interim government. Dr. Mohammed Yunus has already formed a commission that has been told several times in your show, and I'm telling it today. The commission. So once the commission is not submits the report, only then he will start his ball rolling. That is, he has said this before, and of course, you're talking about Asif Nazrul, the advisor, the Nahid Islam, the another advisor. Nahid Islam is definitely representing the students' movement. I mean, he was the leader of the student movement, and he do represent the youth. But it's also very important that to understand that it was Nahid Islam on the midnight had called the students that we have heard the message. The government has heard the message. The interim government has heard the message. So let's move to the Shahid Minar, which is far away from the Bongo Bhavan. So I mean the president's house. So now they have moved to and obviously they will keep the movement running. And of course they don't care about what is written in the constitution. I will not say they are very young and they're students, but it's very important that they have to understand. Yes, so they will have to. And if you're talking about the 1972 constitution, that of course it has been repealed many times before. So it is not no use of mentioning that you have to go back. That is one of the common sentiment of the people, that we need to go back to the 1972 constitution. And the 1972 constitution has many things that is missing in this document. Many rights of the for example, the Adivashis is totally absent in that year. So there are many things that has been, especially the rights, like the freedom of expression, is absolutely missing in the 1970s. So obviously they have, maybe they have done a homework and said that 1970 constitution will not be repeated again. So they have to rewrite the constitution. And you have to rewrite the constitution. There are several clauses which is very, very undemocratic. And of course, it stops or sees the freedom of expression and the rights, or the fundamental rights of each individual. Here in Bangladesh, you know that there are many religious groups, many religious sects. Even the Muslims had several sects in this country. They do not enjoy any rights based on the constitution. But coming back to Dr. Yunus. Dr. Yunus, obviously, right now, I mean, you must have heard that he is been under a checkup for his previous operation, which he had in Paris when he was a guest in the Paris Olympics. So obviously, but he's meeting every day. Every day there is an ambassador. Every day there is a foreign guest. So every day he also met the political parties. The meeting.
Mr. Samad, you are in Dhaka. You're in Dhaka. You're a journalist. Is Dr. Yunus in control of the government?
I cannot speak on behalf of him, but apparently he is in charge of the interim government.
You think he's in charge of the interim government, or Nahid Islam is calling the shots?
The Nahid Islam represents the students, and there is millions of students who are in his follower. Obviously, he will definitely make a noise, and making noise in Bangladesh or even in the subcontinent of South Asia, it makes a lot of difference. And in media, do love people who settle the score, or they are shooting the shots.
So, Mr. Sama, how do you reconcile popular sentiments, an important element in democracy, with constitutionalism, which is the another side of the same coin? Without constitutionalism, where is the balance? You know, it's constitutionalism and popular sentiments are two parts of the same coin. If we have to understand democracy, these are the two weights: constitutionalism and popular sentiments. Well, the one can't have more weight at the cost of others, sir.
I fully understand you. You are very right. But there are so many limitations in the constitution that the students, of course, I would not use the word young. They are very young to understand. No, it is not important to understand. It is important that they will have to keep the student leaders will definitely will have to keep up with the sentiments of the students. And obviously, the interim government has no other alternative but to rely more on the constitution. But I am, as I have mentioned before, I am really surprised that the BNP and as well as the Jamaat Islami have mentioned about that the constitution will have to, the interim government has to follow the constitution, especially on the issue of the
Okay.
of the president. And finally, again, I want to repeat that the interim government have not held a meeting, cabinet meeting, to decide on the fate of the future of the president.
Okay. Now, let me just take one closing comment from Ambassador Sikri. Madam, have you expected the chain of events to run like this when when the initial protest happened? Now the time has elapsed. Like BNP taking a different position from the student unrest for the first time right now, saying no, this will lead to problem. Earlier in my show, you said those positions had come together, the protesters, the BNP and others. Madam.
Yes, well, I think that the divisions within the political system of Bangladesh, the students and the popular will and the interim government, the divisions between them, they're becoming more and more apparent every day. And this is the problem, because I think what the BNP leader's statement, Salahuddin statement, is very significant, because they have for the first time come out publicly and said that we cannot destroy all the institutions like this and then there'll be constitutional crisis. We cannot develop democracy with a constitutional crisis. I can certainly accept what Mr. Salim Samad is saying, that there may be, clauses in the present constitution that need to be changed or altered, or there's a popular view that they need to be changed or altered. That is perhaps so in every country in the world and every constitution in the world, that there are people, individuals, groups who are dissatisfied, who want to add, moderate, etc. But there is a methodology prescribed by the constitution for doing it. You are absolutely right when you say that constitutionalism and popular sentiment are two sides of the same coin. And the popular sentiment is to be reflected through the constitutional, by constitutional means as prescribed, which may be elections, which may be any kind of system that they are. But to have this kind of ad hocism that, oh, we don't like this, we got to throw it out. We don't like that, we got to throw it out. That does not make for a democratic structure, that does not make for unity and stability within the government. The biggest factor is to have a stable approach, to have an approach that will bring stability on the basis of unity. And this is what is coming out even now within 3 months. The differences are emerging so strongly to show that there is no unity. I think the statement by the BNP leader is the first strong and concrete expression of this fact, that there is no unity and there is no interest in having this kind of destruction of every institution that exists in the country, because you cannot say that this is a revolutionary government at all. The effort is to say that this government is an interim government which will be legalized now by the present Supreme Court justices, and they will once they are legalized, and the constitutional factor for allowing a interim government or caretaker government.
Madam, I think that
they have to have elections.
Absolutely right. You see, the street sentiments have to be accommodated, but I don't think any democracy would allow street sentiments to allow the functioning of the government. There's a difference. Respecting the popular sentiments. Thank you so much, Ambassador Sikri. Thank you so much, Mr. Samad, for joining me. I think there has to be a line. Sentiments on streets are very important. People's sentiments are foremost in democracy, but they have to respect the institutional mechanism through which they can function. If not done, then it leads to mobocracy. I leave you with some of the voices that we have captured from ground zero.
এরকম মিথ্যাবাদী রাষ্ট্রপতির পদে থাকতে পারে না। আমরা এই পদত্যাগ চাই, যদি পদত্যাগ না হয় তাহলে আমরা যাব না।
আমরা এই জায়গায় আমি একজন সাধারণ নাগরিক। আমি এখানে আসছি যে আমাদের যে মহামান্য রাষ্ট্রপতি আছে, এটি বাংলাদেশের সাংবিধানিকভাবে সর্বোচ্চ সম্মানীয় পদ। তো এই পদটি আমরা চাই যে বাংলাদেশের একজন সম্মানী ব্যক্তি হোল্ড করবে, এই পদটি ধরে রাখুক। কারণ আমাদের যে মহামান্য রাষ্ট্রপতি আছে তিনি দুইটি দেশের নাগরিক, কিছুদিন আগেই এটি একটি অনুসন্ধানী প্রতিবেদনে জুলকার নাইন সাহেব আমাদের সামনে প্রেজেন্টেশন করেছেন যে আমাদের মহামান্য রাষ্ট্রপতি 2টি দেশের নাগরিক। তো আমরা চাই না যে অন্য দেশের নাগরিক আমাদের দেশের রাষ্ট্রপতি হোক। আমরা এমন একজন রাষ্ট্রপতিকে চাই যিনি আমাদের দেশের নাগরিক হবেন, অন্য কোনো দেশের নাগরিক হবেন না, যার শয়ন স্বপন যার কর্ম সবকিছু এই বাংলাদেশকে ঘিরেই থাকবে। আমরা এমন একজন রাষ্ট্রপতি চাই এবং এই রাষ্ট্রপতিকে এই মুহূর্তে পদত্যাগের জন্য আমরা আহ্বান জানাচ্ছি। আমরা সসম্মানে তাকে বিদায়ের জন্য আমরা আবেদন জানাচ্ছি। না হলে এই যে জনতা আপনারা দেখতে পাচ্ছেন এটি আরো ঢল নামবে এবং এই বঙ্গভবন ঘেরাও হবে, অনেক মানুষজন আসবে। সেটা আমরা চাইনি যে তার অপমান হোক, আমরা চাই না সে পালিয়ে যাক, আমরা চাই সম্মানের সাথে তিনি চলে যাক, কারণ আমরা অন্য দেশের নাগরিককে আমাদের রাষ্ট্রপতি হিসাবে।
Hey, why are so many lights on? Is it Nowroz?
Settling accounts, uncle?
No, writing a love letter.